The boy jolts awake, pulse hammering, and realizes he's now at level 2. He whips his head around, drinking in the strange new surroundings as confusion rips through him at the sudden change in scenery. The boy frantically scans the strange clearing, jagged stones closing in and ghostly lights drifting between them, desperate to figure out where he is. The truth slams down. Several spectators are watching him live, and this is his very first challenge inside a dungeon. Deep in the dungeon, another adventurer clashes with a colossal snake, and a live broadcast captures every heart-stopping strike. They force every adventurer to broadcast each expedition live. Those streams act like watchdogs, snuffing out crime and logging every accident, and he doesn't fully get it, but he shrugs and relents. Adrenaline surging, the boy bolts together his setup and steels himself for his debut stream as a Dan-tuber, a dungeon exploration streamer. He grips his device, eyes blazing, ready to launch. One quick look at the stats and he spots a handful of viewers already tuned into his live stream. On the live stream, the boy bursts in, beaming, and declares he's a total newbie to Dan-tuber's world. He announces he's fresh from training and about to delve into a dungeon. Chat trickles in, and a surge of excitement hits him as he finally feels watched like a real streamer. He strides through the room, mind racing and eyes locked on the tie system that measures the connection between streamer and viewers. It hit him that the first broadcast drags in a flood of ties that decides who'll get support later, and the weight of that choice knots his stomach. He owns up to having barely any streaming experience, bolts toward the reception with his heart racing, and says he just wants the choice to stream or not. The instant he stepped into the dungeon, the stream snapped on. Chat exploded with live comments, and heat seared his face as he begged for a moment of privacy. The boy swears he'll pour every ounce of himself into living up to your expectations. He bursts onto the first floor of the Tokyo dungeon, conceding this place is a killing ground where death waits around every corner. He stumbles into a savage, blood-soaked scene and instantly panics about the broadcast's age rating, wondering if all that gore will shut out younger viewers. Edging through the dungeon corridor, the boy proclaims his creed, steady, precise work, and despite the first floor being relatively safer, he keeps his senses razor-sharp as chat blows up about other streamers' traumas and violent scenes, admits that thought chills him, then reassures everyone he's fully prepared. The boy finally bursts onto the Tokyo dungeon's first floor, scanning every shadow with razor focus and murmuring that this was where he'd seen his parents, but the memories don't stop him. He presses on and greets the others with a confident smile. Nerves prickled in the boy, but the dungeon's strange atmosphere set his blood buzzing with excitement. He steels himself as the first floor lies eerily quiet. Then a group points to a fork in the path. The exploration is about to split into different directions. In a flashback to his lessons, the boy replays the beginner course smartphone instructions, eyes locked on the screen as it lists skills, location, and broadcast status. The first floor map lays it bare. Every path connects and funnels you straight to the next level. With no dead ends in sight, he steels himself, breathes deep, and forges ahead without losing his way. Buzzing with excitement, the boy declares he'll take down 3 slimes today. A nervous tremor cracks his voice, but he forces a bright grin and keeps the mood upbeat. He cracks a grin, jokes he won't make his first day a death milestone, then chooses the third route and strides off beneath the cold scrutiny of watchful eyes. The boy threads a deserted route, the hush wrapping around him and pricking his curiosity, but he forces himself to stay calm. He strides forward, the mandatory adventure's lessons flickering through his mind. He passed the course, but admits he slept through the explanation and still can't make sense of it. The boy's gaze snaps to his first enemy, a slime. He gapes at the creature's adorable face as it toddles closer. The broadcast bellows that the battle has begun, and the chat erupts, roaring support for him in his first real confrontation. Without hesitation, the boy snatches the slime and slams it into the ground with one direct, earth-shattering strike, crushing it flat. The strike detonates, splattering the creature's fluids everywhere. He flashes a confident grin, victorious in his very first battle. After defeating the slime, the boy stares as the live stream chat explodes with comments. Some roar praise for his skill, others slam him for cruelty toward the creature. Confusion coils through him. Could slimes really be this beloved? Critics roar, but he doesn't flinch. No pity for monsters in their brutal world, survival rules above all. Reflecting on the slimes, he snaps to the snow rabbits, brands them deadly, and feels zero pity. He growls that they're treacherous enough to snap a neck if you slip up. And when pressed about other adventurers, he admits he barely watches other streams, so he doesn't know much about their experiences. A viewer leans forward, eyes glued to the live stream, utterly riveted. The boy plunged deeper, stunned by the dead silence after his fight with the slime. He'd braced for monsters at every turn, but the dungeon lay unnervingly calm, so he squared his shoulders and pushed onward, ready for whatever came. He plunges deeper into the dungeon as exhaustion tightens its grip, forcing him to reflect on how brutal an adventurer's life is. And staring at the dizzying stack of levels ahead, he wonders desperately if any shortcut can skip parts of the path. Moments later, a comment in the live stream blows the lid off. There's a direct way to advance, a shortcut between floors. The boy's eyes went wide as a notification about a level shortcut blasted onto his screen. Confusion and excitement surged through him. He hoisted the tablet high into the air. He races to decipher the meaning and unmask Yuki Kazi, the shadowy figure who sent the mysterious message. A thrill rips through him when he realizes Yuki Kazi, a rank B adventurer, is watching and commenting on his stream. He doesn't know the man, but the fixed rank seal's weight hits him, and he feels honored. Yuki Kazi has only a handful of subscribers, yet her rank B status instantly commands respect. His excitement rockets as memories of Yuki Kazi slam into him. She fights with twin blades, wears a fox mask, exudes a commanding presence that inspires him, and above all, he respects her for her incredible strength. His eyes flare with excitement as he declares Yuki Kazi the only dantuber he follows and urges everyone to check her channel, the most fired up we've seen him yet. The boy bellows with glee, vowing he'll praise anyone he admires without shame. He gushes about Yuki Kazi, flaunting his respect for all to see. Chat erupts with jabs that he's plugging another channel midstream. Yuki Kazi shrugs and laughs it off, and the boy beams, thrilled to unleash this livelier side. The boy pressed for every detail about the level shortcut, curiosity blazing from the tip he'd been given. Yuki Kazi shoots a comment. Go a bit farther and you'll hit a bright white magical circle, and the protagonist deliberately plays dumb. Viewers lock onto him and erupt in laughter at his reaction. He admits there's something uncanny about how crowds react to this kind of shortcut. At last, the boy discovers the glowing magical circle Yuki Kazi mentioned, crouches over the sigil with burning curiosity, and admits it's a magical circle, just a strange, imperfect one. Ignoring the chorus telling him to stay away, he bets on Yuki Kazi's word, even as everyone's reactions leave him baffled. Trusting Yuki Kazi completely, the boy strides into the glowing magic circle with an easygoing grin, plants himself in the mark center. Then Yuki Kazi's chat explodes with a frantic, "Stop!" But it's already too late. The moment he steps into the circle, a vacuum rips him inward and confusion flashes across his face. Viewers roar in disbelief. Did he even read the course manual? And the narrator snaps. He entered the shortcut and there's no turning back. Back in the present, the boy lands after using the shortcut and gapes at a jagged, unfamiliar expanse. Isolated, hemmed in by towering cliffs, the air electric with tension, and the weight of his choice crashes down on him. Panic rips through the boy as he stares at a hostile, alien floor he's never seen and wonders what kind of place this is. while a live stream comment pings, sarcastically praising him for stumbling into unexplored territory. Desperation ripped through the boy as he stared into the uncharted wild, screaming why he'd been dropped here and what it even meant to be lost. He scrambles to make sense as Yuki Kazi fires off an apology in the chat. She never imagined he'd actually step into the circle, and the revelation knocks him flat. He's completely off plan. He fessed up. He slept through beginner training, so he didn't know the magical circle was dangerous, and the comments tore into him, mocking him as reckless. He checks his location and his breath catches. He's on the 46th floor, smashing every newcomer's record. Stunned, he forces a nervous grin and bolts to show everyone where he ended up. The boy checks the device and freezes. He's on the dungeon's 500th floor, an unrecorded abyss. The comments erupt in stunned chaos. It's 10 times deeper than the previous record. He feels the full weight of it, no room for error. The phone doesn't lie, and then it slams into him. He might be completely screwed. The boy scans the area and instantly knows this place will chew up any rookie using starter gear. The realization hits like a gut punch. He's staring death in the face, panic clawing at him as one question hammers through his mind. What does it feel like to be brought to ruin? A stubborn ember still burns inside him. Panic claws at the thought of dying in the middle of the stream, and he flashes through every life he hasn't lived yet, and how that loss would wreck Yuki Kazi. Even the slime he'd fought earlier couldn't break him. Resolve ignited. He refused to die here. He refuses to go out pitifully, refuses to be alone, refuses to die on camera. Fear claws at him, but he roars that he won't die. He owns up to ignoring the warnings and treating the course like a joke, now vowing to fight for his life as he begs them not to cut the stream, insisting he's still alive and will survive no matter what. He crashes to his knees, head bowed in reverence, locks eyes with the camera and, voice cracking, apologizes while pleading, blushing and humiliated, that he needs the viewer's support to survive here. Some stare in stunned silence, others hurl cutting sarcasm, and he snaps that he doesn't want to die alone here. Responses pour in from the crowd. Yuki Kazi hesitates, then steels herself and steps up to help. The boy flashes a sincere smile and owns the blame completely. Comments erupt. Some leap to Yuki Kazi's defense. Others revel in the spectacle, and relief crashes through him as he realizes he's not alone on this journey. Answering the chat's questions, the boy bursts into a vivid, breathless description of the world around him. He gapes at rivers of molten lava, the air blistering with heat, and the ground plunging away into jagged, treacherous slopes. He freezes mid-analysis, spotting monsters creeping along the distant ridge. Tension snaps taut as danger surges back, closing in again. The boy's eyes snap to a massive wolf looming ahead. He forces calm, telling himself it's just a regular wolf, while comments note that despite the lava, the dungeon's temperature is regulated to stay livable, and warn beginners to avoid monsters, not confront them. Now, face to face with a real threat, he hesitates, unsure what to do next. He unleashes two skills: praise, which pins monsters and exposes their levels, and item box, a magical pouch that always weighs the same. Handy tools, but pure support with no direct use in combat. Imminent danger bearing down, he concedes he's got no way to fight the monsters with what he has now. He remembers when the dungeons ripped into existence 2 years ago. Back then, a single skill was all it took to waltz inside. He'd laughed it off as harmless fun. Now every breath is a battle to stay alive. Yuki Kazi fires a fierce pep talk at him. He can still learn new skills over time. Then tension snaps when chat drops a single question. What about the floor boss? It hits him hard. He hasn't even thought about that until now. He locks eyes with the floor boss, a towering, grotesque behemoth, and his mind reels when he learns he must defeat this type of monster to advance. Relief crashed through him when he learned he didn't have to slay it. Another adventurer already had. Someone in the chat urged him to find a safe area to rest. Fighting it now was out of the question. Aragami leans in and reveals to the boy that from the 50th floor up, every major country stashes an inactive area on each level called a rest area, urging him to find one of those caves to shelter in and offering to guide him. His jaw dropped. He was talking to the famous runner-up explorer, the massive American star ranked second. His jaw drops when a living legend, the man who solo cleared the 50th floor, shows up watching his stream, and panic claws at him as he asks, was he rude? Was he even worthy of this attention? He snatches up his device and his jaw drops when he sees over 150,000 people watching his stream. Right now, an urgent bulletin explodes across every screen on the planet. The media erupts over the case of Sakai Kotoba, a Tokyo high schooler who vanished when an exploration accidentally catapulted him to the dungeon's 500th floor. And the story goes national and international as he keeps streaming live, proving he's alive. Reaching that abyssal floor obliterates every known record. Sakai's heart drops when he sees himself on the news. Picturing his parents watching, he yells at the camera that he's okay as the broadcast detonates, and his stream rockets into a tidal wave of viewers. Viewership explodes, rocketing past 400th. Face aflame, Sakai plunges into a deep boo, pleading for help and confessing he's a total novice. He forces a grin, convinced his new allies have his back. With iron resolve, he presses on to hunt down the cave Aragami mentioned. Sakai melts into the shadows, gliding soundlessly so the monsters never spot him. He slips along in silence, trying to stay unseen. Then a wolf's eyes snap to him, locking its stare like a hunter zeroing in. Sakai crested the hill and whooped, arms flung wide, convinced she'd found a calm, spacious haven. He dared to think he'd hit a bonus stage and could vault ahead until Aragami snapped, "Don't jinx it!" And at that exact moment, something loomed above him. A titanic, snarling wolf materializes above Sakai, and he goes rigid as terror pins him to the spot. He forces out a shaky greeting, then the blood drains from his face as danger crashes over him. Yuki Kazi screams in the chat, "Run!" Sakai sprints for his life as a massive black wolf springs after him. Fear screams in his chest, but he fixes a shaky grin and cries out, trusting someone, anyone, will drag him to safety. Sakai sprints for his life as a giant wolf hounds his heels, panic spiking as he thinks this is the end. With every thunderous step the monster closed in, its maw yawning as if to swallow him, while Sakai tore forward with every scrap of strength clinging to a razor-thin chance of escape. Sakai screams he cannot handle it, begging his live stream viewers for help as a super chat eerily pops up labeled funeral expenses. He dove clear as the blast ripped the ground to pieces behind him. Despair clenched his gut, but he still joked he'd profit from the stream clips later. Sprinting for his life, Sakai snarls that if viewers are going to toss him super chats, they could at least send something useful. Yuki Kazi fires back. Use the money to buy potions. Aragami drops the bomb. Each one carries a $100,000 price tag and can even regenerate lost limbs. A torrent of donations floods the screen, soaring to 10 million. Sakai's jaw drops as a real shot at survival suddenly blazes into being. Sakai erupts in celebration at the miracle of the donations, then bolts into the store to snatch up potions. They materialize overhead. He snaps his item box open, snatching them mid-jump and priming them to unleash as he bolts away. Sakai bolts from the giant wolf, rockets toward the airborne potions, and catapults himself into the air. Then his fingers tangle and he fumbles, trying to snatch them all at once. He drives a brutal blow into the enemy, heart hammering as he already plots a clean escape that leaves him unscathed. A brutal blow slams into Sakai, white-hot agony exploding through his arm. A jolt of disbelief hits him as the arm starts regenerating at blistering speed. Stunned, he claws for an explanation while still sprinting away. Sakai bolts forward as his arm knits itself back together, panic clawing at him. Yet he still scrolls the live stream's joke-filled chat, and one viewer erupts with praise for his skills. Desperation rips through Sakai as he screams for real help. He demands a solution, not laughs. Sakai snaps, raging that the viewers are utterly useless. Yuki Kazi suddenly shouts that he just ripped past a cave. Aragami confirms it's a rest area. Sakai spins, his gaze snapping to the place and disbelief flooding him. How did he never see it before? Sakai bolts from the monster, shouting to his viewers that this is what being a viewer really means. Tossing life-saving tips and comments. He downs a potion, keeps sprinting, pumped by the chat, and declares this is the true spirit of dungeon live streaming. Sakai keeps sprinting, his foot slips out and he crashes to the ground. A lightning idea snaps into his head. He remembers a tip from the comments. Large creatures can be felled from underneath or behind, so he spins to face the enemy and locks onto a weak spot. The monster hurls a searing, full-force energy blast dead-on at Sakai. My fist slammed into him dead center. Strike number 4. Against all odds, he still stands, absorbing the brutal impact. Sakai is flung, tumbles across the ground, then springs up with a confident grin and charges full tilt for the cave entrance as the giant wolf barrels right behind him. Unwavering and razor-focused, he crawls into the cave and whoops, alive. Across the globe, viewers sit frozen, shock ripping the breath from their lungs. He scrambles to grasp what just happened, then, still panting, clutches his device and asks, "Will I be safe inside?" Sakai watched the wolf halt at the cave's rim. When it refused to follow, relief crashed through him. The place was safe, and super chats exploded across his feed, flooding the screen with messages congratulating him on surviving. Relief fought panic in his veins as he forced steady breaths and stared down the monster looming outside. Adrenaline roaring, Sakai spat curses at the wolf, labeling it a fire-spitting idiot and taunting it for bolting. The crowd hollers he's getting cocky. The wolf locks eyes with a feral grin and actually says it's starting to like him, while the rest trade worried glances at his taunts. The wolf strikes again, blasting a scorching jet of flame, its rage ignited by the provocation. Sakai bolts in desperate flight, panic on the surface, but a fierce thrill simmering deep down, giving away that he's secretly loving every frantic moment. He spits back that he's angry now, too. They're even. And with danger closing in, he stares the wolf down, a nervous smile on his face as it bristles with real annoyance. Sakai watches the wolf curl down and exhale into calm, like it's tucking the whole day into bed. Grinning, he casually quips that his first Dan Tuber stream exploded into utter chaos and disbelief. Yet he rolls with it. He kicked off his journey from the dungeon's 500th floor, an unprecedented start. Chapter 2 kicks off by hurling us onto the deadly 500th floor of the dungeon. Sakai snaps awake and realizes the giant wolf has been drilling its unblinking stare into him for 8 straight hours. Shock hits. He snatches his phone and confirms the sleep time, while the whole world gapes at the live broadcast, stunned by the absurd spectacle. Sakai reels as he discovers the whole world watched him sleep for 8 hours, and he glares at the viewers, firing incredulous questions their way. On the other side of the screen, a national broadcaster is blasting his live stream across the airwaves like breaking news, and he can't fathom why his broadcast is being treated as a major national event. Sakai roars with fury as they air the exact moments he nearly died. Live for everyone to see. Accusations of unethical conduct explode, while at-home viewers sit calm, insisting the system auto-triggers a classification warning the moment serious injuries appear. He reels. They're using enchanted stones and smartphones for this now, and the energy crises have been wiped out since he was last in Japan. Sakai glares at the wolf, snarling for it to quit playing Dungeon Master, then grimly notes that many people have died here. The wolf snarls, teeth bared, but Sakai holds his ground and shoots back, "Been tailing me so long you fell in love?" A viewer in the live stream dubs the wolf a stalker, and Sakai laughs. That's a good idea. Sakai slams his appraisal into place, and the wolf before him erupts with a name, Sukoru, a unique boss werewolf at level 1240. He faces the revelation with a nervous, crooked smile as comments erupt over the absurd level gap between them, over 1,000, and his eyes snap wide in stunned surprise. A unique boss with a name? Shock still clinging to him, Sakai forces a breezy tone on stream and claims he's just a novice, teleported straight from the first level. He gasps that the 500th floor monsters average level 68, and that it's the first time he's seen a unique boss combo. Reality slams down. Everything here is too strong, and with a desperate smile, he declares, "It's over." Sakai clamps down his fear, centers his thoughts, and spits out, "I made it to the rest area. There has to be a way to survive." He even tossed out a quip about quitting. He snatches his decision back as the cold truth slams in. That choice meant death. Sprinting from the wolf, he lashes out at the viewers for their callousness while desperately hunting any sliver of escape. Sakai waits inside a safe zone, panic nibbling at him. He can buy food and water to stay alive, but he has no idea how long that dwindling supply will hold. Reality slammed into him. Waiting for rescue was a fool's dream. He was stranded on the 500th floor, a death-haunted zone that chews through 100,000 lives a year, so the odds anyone could reach him were nearly zero. Sakai realizes he must slay the wolves to climb the floors. Even clutching potions, the odds still point to him being crushed. Desperate to get stronger, but clueless how, he's told to hunt a treasure chest. He finds one, rips it open, and prays a powerful item is inside to help him. Sakai's gut screams that the treasure chest is too good to be true. A message blinks in. The wolf's a boss, so the chest must contain an item. He spots a razor-thin chance to flip the whole situation, even if it's barely there. Sakai detests trusting luck, but with his options nearly gone, he seizes the desperate idea of hunting a treasure chest even though he knows he might never find one. We can't leave now. The wolves prowl outside and will tear down anyone who steps out. Sakai steels his nerves and plunges into the cave's yawning darkness. He freezes at how cavernous the rest area is, then fixes on a distant light, and his mind snaps to the thought that it's a crucial clue. Sakai plunges deeper into the cave and finds a cavern with a roaring river of magma at the bottom. He prefers it to the monster house, but he freezes. Instincts shout it's not safe. Sakai discovers an ornate, jewel-encrusted chest resting on the bottom of the cave and explodes into a victorious whoop, throwing his arms skyward. Electric curiosity jolted him. He couldn't tell if anything good would come of it, but he ripped it open anyway. Right before he opens the chest, a cold jolt hits Sakai. His appraisal skill can't scan lifeless objects. A warning rings in his head. Ordinary chests can be monsters in disguise. The notorious mimics. To beat that ambush, he'd need trap detection skills or the piercing sight of clairvoyance. It hits him. He's only ever heard about it. It was all just rumor. Sakai's hand hovers, suspicion screaming trap, but he gives in and opens the chest. Aragami snaps that, with things this twisted, the monsters could be clever and dangerously calculating. Every inch of the floor screams wolf territory. Even if the chest is a mimic, other monsters probably couldn't invade here. Sakai, still confused, swallows his doubt, chooses to trust, and braces to open the chest. Sakai throws open the chest as several cameras converge like a live spectacle. He floods with excited confidence, blind to the shimmering glass cell that just snapped into place around him. Sakai screams as something explodes from his chest and rips at him. The audience erupts in comments, laughing that he always loses an arm in scenes like this. Aragami coldly confirms they were outside the wolf's territory, as if that somehow justified the trap. Sakai explodes, fury and hurt snapping through him as he realizes nobody actually cares about what he's been through. Sakai barely survived. A 100,000 potion bought him a single heartbeat, and Aragami sneers that if the activation move hadn't required contact, Sakai would have died. Sakai stays upbeat, wildly thanking everyone who sent info through the super chats and mercilessly teasing the ones who just laughed and never helped. Sakai roared that he had almost amassed 100 million, but he still had no clue how many potions he'd need. Aragami urged him to check the shop. So much money poured in, fresh products had to have arrived, and Sakai practically buzzed with excitement. Sakai's eyes went wide as the shop erupted with new wares. Racks of clothes, jars of pungent spices, and a massive cauldron planted in the corner. He scoffs at the idea of cooking in a dungeon, snapping he'd never do that here. Someone explains the shop's wares shift with each person, and a wish can summon exactly what you want. Sakai stakes the place as his base until he vanquishes the wolves. It offers a surprisingly high quality of life. But when he imagines cooking, he winces, worried about open flames and the lurking magma. He sizes it up and reckons that if this is an adapted version of the dungeon, he could handle it. Sakai's eyes blaze at the idea of cooking with magma as he bellows, "He'll try it!" And the viewers gape, baffled and stunned by the sudden turn. Aragami gives the nod and greenlights the plan. Sakai goes silent, replaying his decision to cook with magma. He admits he's not doing it for fun or because he's fearless. He's doing it to repay his viewers' loyalty, and to stop the channel from going stale, he decides to take a daring risk for them. Sakai ignites his magma cooking project, racing to gather food, water, seasonings, and a massive pot. His jaw drops at the 210 bounty yen price. Disbelief explodes. A simple pot costs more than a potion that can regenerate lost limbs. Sakai sizes up the price tags on water, food, and seasonings, crunches the numbers, and swallows the sticker shock. Expensive, but tolerable if he frames them as tourist attraction prices. He falters for a beat, and a viewer snaps, "You're a millionaire. Quit being stingy." Red-faced, he snaps up the items and can't help picturing them plummeting from the sky like the potions did. Seconds after the purchase, things plummeted from the sky. A frying pan thundered down, dumping vegetables, meat, and seasonings onto the ground. And Sakai stood frozen in stunned silence, forcing a shaky smile because he had no idea how to react to this bizarre scene. Sakai crumples to the floor as a frying pan slams into his head, roaring that he wanted a hot, cooked meal, not a pile of raw ingredients. The pan cradles meat, a chopped onion, a carrot, and a dusting of curry powder. Then it hits him. No fire, no proper utensils, and he's stuck with useless ingredients. Sakai stays sprawled on the floor, groaning, while a caption pops up declaring the dish is a summer vegetable curry that banishes fatigue. He spots the pan lodged in a cauldron. No, a wok, and says it doesn't make much difference, then reels as the rice rises and floats on the water by itself, and a cold suspicion claws at him. This is dungeon power. Sakai locks onto the spice set's tiny jars and decides that rationing them will make them last, laughs that rice can swallow even the worst seasonings, and dives into cooking without fearing mistakes. He'd turned the pan into a bowl, so he swore he'd buy a new one later. Sakai grabs the brand new pot and eagerly tests it before even starting to cook. He's itching to prove it can survive magma. He shelled out 210,000 yen and expects it to hold firm. Striding toward the spot, he snarls that nothing would sting more than starting to cook and watching the pot fail. Sakai plunges the pot into the searing magma, launching the test with iron determination, and snaps that this challenge is for both the plan and the meal. Steam lashes the pot's surface as it boils, and he locks his gaze, heart hammering. Daring fate, will it melt or stand its ground? Sakai explodes into celebration when the pot endures the magma. He bellows that the durability test is complete and hurls his arms skyward, raring to cook. He turned the walkway into a cutting board. The sight made my skin crawl. Those tiny measuring spoons that came with the spices? They've become my kitchen's secret weapon. Sakai wipes her hands, throws her arms up with a victorious shout. The summer vegetable curry is ready. No plate? He attacks the pan head-on, a satisfied grin spreading as he says, "Itadakimasu," and dives into the food. Sakai scoops a spoonful, tastes it, and jolts in surprise as scorching heat explodes across her tongue. He dives back in for another taste and declares, "This is delicious." He likens the feeling to biting into an onigiri after summiting a mountain, remembers the potions have left him exhausted and wounded, and forces himself to move. Sakai's spoon freezes mid-bite as his curry bowl shudders. He scans the room, convinced he's the only one seeing it. Then the floor heaves and the ground explodes into a quake. He blamed an earthquake, then froze, baffled that not a single tremor quivered through his own body. His eyes snapped to a chest nearby. Suspicion flared. Danger lurked, so he bolted at once. Magma exploded up in front of Sakai. He staggered back, heart hammering, then marveled that the blazing inferno was strangely beautiful. He berated himself for fooling around, knowing eruptions don't happen in the damp zone of the 500th floor, and kicked himself for wasting time in such a volatile spot. Sakai sits, unblinking as the volcano rips the sky apart. He stares into the blazing maw, accepts what's coming, and whispers, "It's been a good journey." Viewer messages flood in, half-jokes tangled with real worry. "That's not fireworks. Aren't you going to get out?" Sakai freezes, convincing himself he can savor the view before the worst hits. Sakai clasps her hands, closes her eyes, and bows, offering a quiet, traditional thank you for the meal. Moments later, the spotlight flared a new message. He'd unlocked a skill, an unexpected reward forged when he tried to cook amid the chaos. Fueled by a hot meal and newly regained strength, Sakai called for a strategy meeting. It slams into him. The floor's monsters are too powerful, and even treasure chests hide deadly traps, so he hatches a daring new plan to get stronger. The answer lands like a thunderclap. He should hone new skills, and even Aragami admits that learning them might be the most realistic path. Sakai presses for the exact way to gain new skills. Aragami warns that some actions are rumored to unlock them, but there's no promise. Most of the time, it's pure luck. Sakai realizes his only option is to start hurling random attempts, even as the explanation leaves him baffled and tangled. Sakai snaps that the guide to gaining skills was maddeningly vague, winces at the memory of the chest incident, and urges everyone to share their own adventuring tales. His stomach drops as he realizes he hasn't seen any comments from Yuki Kazi in ages, and worry claws at him. But his spirits skyrocket the moment he spots a new message from her. She explains that, from past experience, the resistance system is easy to acquire. Yuki Kazi smirks that the heat resist skill lets you shove your hand into lava and feel nothing. Sakai can't resist, tries it on the spot, and ends up horribly burned, and someone in the chat snaps, "Are you stupid?" Another scoffs, "It's searing." He shouldn't even be feeling it, proving he still has no resistance. Sakai stares at his burned hand as searing agony claws at him. Yet he grits his teeth and tames the panic. He snaps his gaze to the interface as pain-resistant, skill acquired flares across the screen. Pain stabbed him, but a freshly unlocked skill let him shrug it off. Chat blew up, calling him a zombie and shouting that his conviction skill is what steels him to keep going despite everything. Sakai nods, confirming Yuki Kazi was right. It's strange she still lacks heat resistance, but he knows resistance skills usually develop with time, so he's completely unfazed. Sakai vows to forge heat resistance by plunging his feet straight into molten lava. He howls that it's burning, yet he doubles down, dubbing those magma foot baths resistance. And by the finale, the narrator flat out calls him an idiot. Sakai grits through brutal heat resistance training as Yuki Kazi stares, shocked his feet haven't melted, and Aragami admits he'd lose his mind in that blaze before adding, "If you survive, I want you to join me." Surrounded by support items and with lava boiling nearby, Sakai braced, determination blazing as he drove home that this was vital. An hour drags by, but Sekai, still unbowed in his insane challenge, finally reaps his prize as heat resistance flashes onto his status screen. Relief rockets through him, and he bellows a triumphant, "Yay!" Sakai roars with triumph as he plunges a hand into lava and doesn't melt instantly. Before his arms and legs would turn to charcoal in seconds. So he preens like he's transcended humanity while the comments keep mocking him. Sakai pins his hopes on his heat resistance, sure it'll blast him straight to the next level. The stream's chat erupted in mocking laughter, tearing apart his claim and proving nobody believed this insane idea. Sakai, bent on proving his strategy after a string of mistakes, strides to the lava's edge with unshakable confidence. He knew that without heat resistance, the searing heat would already have floored him. Sakai dumps the scalding pan straight onto the chest with a cocky grin, bragging that his plan's working. Then something unexpected snaps him to attention. Sakai's breath froze. Magma slammed into the chest, and it stayed unscathed. He realized that, since he's in a magma zone, the lava couldn't harm it. The monster probably already shrugged off the heat, but he flings the same attack again, admitting he truly believed it would hit. Sakai steels himself, swearing he'll stop living by orders and seize his fate with his own strength, deciding for himself. He confesses his cramped mind can't conjure any grand ideas, so he clings to his viewers' advice, devouring every tip they throw his way. Sakai stares at the chest with icy suspicion, baffled that the pan's touch didn't even make it flinch. Heart pounding, he tests it one last time to prove it's not a trap, then braces and reaches to pry it open. Sakai heaves at the chest, muscles screaming, but the lid won't budge. He's left red-faced, feeling foolish. He swallows his pride and admits he knew so little that, from day one, he had to lean on others. Clear proof he's still a somewhat foolish adventurer. While straining to shove the heavy chest, Sakai's mind hunts down every choice that put him here. Even while seeking advice, he insists on the final say, swearing he won't blame anyone if it fails. He steels himself to follow his conviction, and at that exact moment his chest finally heaves. Sakai hurls the chest into the lava. At first it seems pointless because the creature is immune to heat, but then he sees it. It's sinking, thrashing, and being swallowed by the molten sea. Sakai watches the pan slip into the molten lava as if swallowed whole, then exhales, relief flooding through him. He stares at the horizon, serenity washing over him while satisfaction settles into his bones like a quiet victory. Sakai roars, heaves the chest monster into the molten lava, then erupts in triumphant cheers as he levels up. He chokes out a heartfelt thank you, swearing he'll never forget Mr. Chest, while Aragami and Yuki Kazi trade amused remarks, clearly reveling in the bizarre moment. Sakai explodes with excitement. His level rocketed from 2 to 50, and he flashes his stats to show he's now the recommended power to storm the dungeon's middle and lower floors. Even after making massive progress, the comments slam him with the brutal truth. It still won't be enough against a level 1240 wolf. Even knowing level 50 barely scratches the surface, Sakai dares to dream a little. Yuki Kazi smirks that his sights sharpened so much he'd almost track bullets mid-flight, and Sakai beams at her small growth, calling Yuki Kazi a rare special viewer. Yuki Kazi yells there's something at Sakai's feet. Sakai looks down, snatches a sticky candy, stunned it had suddenly appeared, and wonders if it's a prize for beating the chest monster. Buzzing from his victory, Sakai pounces on the candy and gulps it down without a second thought, and the comment section explodes with surprised, curious viewers. It's not a skill ball, a rare catch, and he just keeps grinning, stone-cold calm, even after being warned a stomachache might strike. Still sucking the candy, Sakai realizes it's a rare skill ball dropped by monsters that grants a skill with a single lick. Whoops for having eaten it without a second thought. Sure, he made the right call. And moments later, a random skill ignites. Sakai's chest clenched. One lick would have triggered the skill, and he'd already devoured every last bite. Sienna, ranked 6th in the world, watches from afar and revels in every move he makes. She grins, says she dashed over to the commotion, and declares Sakai one fascinating kid. Her phone lit up with his live stream. Sakai asks, voice tight, if the skill he gained can be random and dangerous. And Sienna just shrugs, says it's usually a meaningless skill, then throws her head back and laughs wildly. Seconds later, a comment slams in. Does Sakai even know a skill called Princess? A blunt sign he's still painfully inexperienced. Sienna Coutral, ranked 6th in the world and the only known woman to hold an S rank, is feared as Kuboheim, the princess beheader who cleaves heads with a brutal axe. Sakai froze, heartbeat hammering as he realized he'd been handed priceless intel from someone overwhelmingly powerful. Still healing, Sakai feels a new level explode inside him. Quitting isn't an option, and Yuki Kazi's message slices through the haze like a battle cry. Live strong. He steels himself. The odds are stacked against him, but a single stubborn chance still flickers. Excitement crackled through him, and he exploded into motion, flaunting the new skills he'd pulled from the treasure chest. Sakai unlocks the brutal skill, Self-Sacrifice, which turns every defense boost from future level-ups into raw attack power. But the cruel price is he can no longer use heavy equipment. He grasps it's a monstrous skill that catapults his attack to terrifying heights, and he's knocked utterly speechless. Sakai spots the skill's side effect, and shock slams into him as he finally grasps it. It's a devastating attack tool, but the ban on heavy armor makes him question if that price is worth paying, and though he forces himself to accept it, his discouraged stare gives away how rattled he is. Sakai hurls himself onto the dirt, rage boiling because the skill that was supposed to help actually weakens him. Howling that his life was sacrificed from the start, and this only makes it worse. But as he writhes and sulks, the comments yank him back. He's still alive. He's stocked with potions, and that last tactic was nothing but a desperate gamble. Sakai crashes down, drained to the bone, croaks that he's already past his limit, then surrenders to sleep. Voices from all over call out the hour. Some are still at noon. He scrambles through the system to buy clothes, but exhaustion forces him to quit. A comment pops up. You sleeping? Sakai snaps back. I just laid down. A few hours later, Sakai snaps awake, grins, and calls out, Good morning, even though the clock screams noon. It's the 3rd day of survival, and rest has shaved the sharp edge off his nerves. While he whipped the place into shape and readied a few things, they laughed. Seriously, you can sleep anywhere, dead to the world. Recharged, Sakai dives into reflection. He watches, pulse racing, as comments from far more competent players, Yuki Kazi, Aragami, and another mysterious figure, pour into his feed. His new visual skill finally lets him read the comments, each line hammering a headache into his head. But the real shock, the section is jammed with elite-level link-ups and fiery debates between seasoned adventurers. Sakai sees the situation has twisted into a mess, but his brain's still racing. He needs local intel to forge a plan, so he strikes out alone to get it. Jaw set, he swore he'd melt into the shadows and silently chart every inch of the ground around him. Sakai drops into a crouch, every muscle coiling as he prepares to explode into a sprint. He explodes into a sprint, shoulders squared and jaw set, every stride fueled by iron resolve. He suddenly asks himself why he's charging at breakneck speed, and the comments light up, ribbing him that his frantic sprinting is total overkill when he's only trying to explore. Sakai slams a finger against the wall and snarls, This is the wolf's territory, his mind flashing back to the wolf that had stared him down the day before. Though he can't see any now, he sprints as a precaution, refusing to be caught off guard, and the comments explode. Some cheer his grit while others mock him for overexerting himself, reactions swinging from admiration to ridicule. Sakai swears mapping is your lifeline when you're fleeing. Without it, you barrel into dead ends. A battle-scarred adventurer drilled that into him, and now he survives by piecing together others' routes and intel. He leans on them, yet he carves the route by mapping the course himself. By the end, he sounds the alarm that supplies are nearly gone and pleads with viewers to help. Sakai slams his pencil down and vows to grab a photo from a high point. Way easier than sketching the map by hand. Frustration gnaws at him for wasting time on pointless notes, and he's already bracing for a storm of criticism in the comments. But he steels himself, charges forward, and grinds to deliver results and right his mistakes. Sakai climbs to a high vantage and gasps as a breathtaking panorama unfolds before him. He snaps a photo and explodes with excitement when the shot reveals part of the terrain. Rivers of molten lava and wolves slipping through the haze. Sakai's blood ran cold. If he could spot the wolves from above, they'd spot him just as easily. The truth slams into him, panic explodes, and he's laid bare under the monster's eyes. He locks eyes on the wolf as it charges and the world drags into syrup slow motion. This has to be that legendary slow second, and with the collision seconds away, he wonders if at last it's his time to die. He plants himself before the hurtling energy mass, unmoving as it slams toward him. An explosion erupts at his feet, and he watches in stone-cold silence, like a man who has already accepted his fate. The creature lunged, its claws shaving past the protagonist by inches. They freeze, eyes snapping wide and jaw dropping in raw surprise. Someone scoffs that it was luck. Sienna snaps back, "No, this wasn't luck," and Aragami nods fiercely in agreement. He reminds everyone Yuki Kazi already warned. The wolf's power surges with every rise in the player's level. Aragami snaps that Sakai read the fireball's arc and slipped out of its path. Other viewers freeze, whispering how he pulled off such a high-level dodge, and their curiosity explodes. The attack rockets at Seka. She pivots aside at the last heartbeat, the blow missing by a hair. Flames seared his arm, but no pain touched him. His heat resistance and pain-resistant skills he'd earned earlier held, and as he staggered to recover, he toppled into a cauldron. One of the wolves bursts back into view, teeth bared and ready to strike. Sakai reads the danger and bolts without a second thought. He beats a retreat and aborts the exploration, for now, and bolt back to the cave for safety. Sakai lunged back toward the cave and stopped cold. The wolf had already beaten him there, planted at the entrance like a snarling wall. Sakai forces a trembling smile, conceding the enemy's cunning. Sakai's chest tightens as the wolf bars the cave mouth. He remembers it watching him sleep. Figures it knows this is his refuge and lay in wait for his return. Sakai throws up his hands and confesses he has no idea what to do, then slams the problem onto everyone else, snarling that it's their job to figure it out. He spits that everyone underestimates him and brands him naive, and when he asks if they know it, they shoot back a flat, "For sure." Sakai stakes his life on the final call. The ultimate responsibility stays with him, even in death, so everyone else can pitch ideas without guilt. He wears a carefree grin, then his ironclad integrity bursts through and stuns everyone watching. He flings his arms skyward, grinning as he declares his life now rests in the viewer's hands, while the chat explodes with, "This guy is problematic." Yuki Kazi slides him a map, stitched from several cuts, showing the territory Sakai's already covered, and dares him to fill the blank spaces himself. Stunned by its razor-sharp accuracy and usefulness, Sakai blurts, "Are you a god?" Sakai snaps. It was Yuki Kazi who sent the map, and his jaw drops as the dungeon phone has every detail logged and even lights up his own position in real time. Aragami laughs and says it hooks straight into the phone's automatic mapping, which makes the whole thing even more insane. Sakai explodes into a thank you to the viewers and to Aragami and Sienna for their help, vowing he'll fight tooth and nail so Yuki Kazi doesn't beat him. The comment section erupted, hailing Yuki Kazi's razor-sharp skill and the brilliant map she'd sent. Fans are floored that Yuki Kazi sits at B. She's nearly a ghost on the records, yet her jaw-dropping contributions scream she belongs higher. Sakai pins Yuki Kazi with a distrustful stare, suspicion coiling in her chest as she whispers, "Yuki Kazi, who are you?" Yuki Kazi plants his feet in the cavernous hall, facing two towering beasts as an eerie, crushing power pulses from him. Yuki Kazi's icy glare locks onto the beasts as she sneers and brands them nuisances. A sudden blur cut through the air. She unleashes Windsickle, razor wind blades cleaving through the enemies. Yuki Kazi lands the finishing blow, then stares cold as winter at the aftermath. Her eyes snap to the device. Its glow screams 60th floor, Tokyo Dungeon, and she whispers, "Still not enough," and knows she's come this far, but her journey's only beginning. Yuki Kazi locks her gaze on the scene, her face razor serious, and confesses flatly, it was because of her that Sakai Kutoba, a promising novice, they hurled him alone onto the perilous 60th floor, a move no one had ever dared. Regret coils in her gut. She remembers she only joked when she urged him into the teleportation circle. Now she's desperate to know why he actually went in. A man in a suit tells her only Yuki Kazi in Japan can hit that level, says he gets her need for secrecy, reveals they've greenlit forging a live stream account, and vows to do everything to draw attention away from it, as Yuki Kazi listens, and the narration crowns her a top-tier S rank. All eyes lock on Kazama Yukinasama. She's utterly still, and an S rank frozen like that isn't a joke. Her silence crackles with raw power and a suffocating, unknowable mystery. From afar, Yukain keeps watch, the responsibility she bears like a stone in her chest, and she knows anyone who steps into the dungeon does so at their own risk. Sakai only plunged into the teleportation circle because of one offhand remark from her, and she quietly admits her words are what dragged him into this mess. Sakai explodes with excitement on the live broadcast. Thanks Yuki Kazi for the map she made, says it'll help them massively, and urges everyone to keep exploring until every blank on the map is filled. Determination snapped into Yuki Kazi's eyes. She vowed in silence that because of him, she'd give her all too. Yuki Kazi watches Sakai from afar, her heart stirred by the fierce optimism that saved her, yet she knows she must act on her own. Jaw set, she springs to her feet with a hard, determined stare. She steels herself, vows she'll triumph this time, and cries out, "Wait for me, Sakai!" Alone in the empty corridor, Yuki Kazi fixes her gaze down the hall, a fierce hope burning in her chest. "I hope I can save him," she tells herself. And now, more than ever, she feels it's her turn to repay everything Sakai has done for her. The wolf pins itself at the cave mouth as the protagonist circles the area on foot, racing to complete the map. Exploring, he stumbles upon a treasure chest. Strangely, it's engulfed in flames, leaving him confused and worried. He drives the final inked line into the map as the wolf pins itself across the cave's mouth with a low, unyielding snarl. Exploration complete. The only mission left is a flat-out sprint back to the starting point. The wolf lurks, coiled and watchful. Tension snaps taut, leaving only one burning question. What do we do now? He rushes back from exploring to find the wolf still barring the resting room entrance, sprawled in the same spot and refusing to budge. He resolves to use the gadget he forged yesterday, yanking it from his item box. Before he makes a single move, he primes himself by slamming back the potion exactly as he'd been instructed. The boy faces the wolf, steals his mind, and the instant the beast hurls a predictable fireball, he snaps into action, primed to answer with equal fury. The boy thrusts up an improvised shield cobbled from a paper broom and deflects the attack. The explosion of fire slammed into the barrier and ricocheted off, and he stood stunned that it had actually held. Flames lick his hands, but the boy locks his gaze, razor-focused. He plants his feet, stares down the blazing fireball, refuses to budge. and the wolf freezes. He blasted forward, teeth gritted, shaving the distance to inches so he could spring his next move with the hidden bottle. As the wolf summons a second fireball, the boy rockets forward at top speed. Right before the shot rings out, he coils, ready to hurl the bottle, staking everything on his gambit. The bottle slams into the wolf's snout, staggering it as liquid erupts and shrouds the beast, leaving it dumbfounded. It never expected to be hidden like that. The wolf reels from the blow. Sakai bolts without looking back, a grin ripping across his face as he knows he finally has a real chance to escape, while the wolf staggered back to its feet, bristling and snorting just behind him. Sakai rockets out of the wolf's grip, lets out a shaky, triumphant breath, and reveals he stunned it with pepper. It reacted like a doe. Then he fires up the pan and whips up gyoza for a victory dinner, grinning at the result. Sakai grins and confesses he used an empty potion bottle stuffed with pepper as a weapon against the wolf, admits he wasn't sure it'd work, but beams at the result. Then he eats peacefully while someone calls him malicious. He snaps back, "Eat. It's vital if you want to keep going." Sakai snaps that potions can heal the body, but you still can't survive without food, clothes, and shelter. Then, out of nowhere, he blurts, "I want to take a bath." He suddenly remembers that before heading into the dungeon, he bathed twice a day. A sharp worry snaps that he might stink, then relief floods him when he realizes he's alone. Sakai fantasizes about hurling himself into molten lava just to take a bath. His conscience snaps awake and scolds him back to reality. He eyes the pot, imagines boiling water, but longs to sink into a real, steaming bath. Sweat drenched him just standing there as he barked that he couldn't bathe or catch a wink, yet he grudgingly admitted it could be worse. Sakai admits the wolf's fireballs make it dangerous, but he's sure its attacks are predictable. Picturing how the stream's viewers will watch the fight, he steels himself, faces the wolf, and begins to climb. The comments tear into his confidence, crowing about the massive skill gap between him and them. Sakai yanks 2 mysterious potions from his item box and grins, saying he'll figure out a way to use them somehow. Taunting comments shred his swagger, reminding him he doesn't even know if these potions work. But curiosity drags him forward as he studies a vial. Sakai gulps down one of the mysterious potions. Regret hits him the instant it touches his tongue. The taste is vile. He squirms and pleads he'd rather be anywhere else. Still, he detects a foul tang that oddly feels like a tonic for his body, despite being nearly poisonous, while the comments jeer like one taste will send him to his grave. Sakai slams back another potion and boasts, "Doesn't seem poisonous." He remembers a viewer's throwaway comment like a thrown knife. Seemingly harmless things can hurt. He snaps awake. Things that looked dangerous aren't, and he's been letting random chat opinions dictate every move. Sakai smirks. Poison. I'll slam another potion, and the system flashes a harsh warning. Potions don't cure status effects. Seeing the first leave him unscathed, he deduces the other must be poisonous. If it's potent enough, he can turn it into a weapon against the wolf. The next day, Sakai squares off with the wolf again, as someone yells to shove the substance straight into the beast's gaping maw. He snaps back that that's not the plan. First, he wants to confirm something. Silence cloaked Sakai as he hatched a reckless gambit. He smeared a mysterious potion on his arm and let the wolf sink its teeth, hoping the bite would strike their enemy. Sakai steps forward with eerie calm, arm outstretched like bait, certain that because the wolf always strikes first, its jaws will go straight for his arm. Insane as it sounds, he goads the monster by thrusting his arm out as bait. Sakai locks his arm outstretched, a calm smile curving on his lips. He locked eyes with the wolf's gaping maw, deadly calm and certain his plan would work, while the beast hung a single misstep away from sinking its teeth. The wolf lunges and sinks its teeth into Sakai's arm. The wolf gulps the mysterious potion along with it. Sakai's eyes widen as he watches the plan unfold. The wolf has eaten exactly as he expected. Sakai clamps the mysterious potion in his palm, holding his breath as the wolf chews calmly on what it just swallowed, silent and waiting for the poison to bite. Then the wolf's eyes slowly shift, a clear sign the toxin is taking hold. The wolf suddenly convulses, thick drool dripping from its maw as it writhes in unbearable pain. Sakai's eyes bulged, shock ripping through him as the poison took hold at once. The potion was venomous, and his plan had hit dead center. Sakai stares at the trapped wolf, relief and shock colliding in his chest. He never thought the beast would take the trap, figured poison would have warned it off, but it worked, and now he clutches his wounded arm, stunned he's still alive. Sakai's plan hit its mark. The wolf lay sprawled on the ground, poisoned, and he stood watching, stunned at how effortlessly it happened. Victory in hand, he admitted it felt almost disappointingly simple. Sakai locks his gaze on the wolf's beaten body as he scrolls the viewer's comments, each message landing like a sneer aimed straight at him. He willed himself calm, locked his focus, and plotted his next move. Sakai fixed his gaze on the fallen wolf. Because it hadn't vanished, he knew it still clung to life, and a brutal question slammed into him. Would the poison be enough to finish it? They can't judge the creature's condition just by looking. Someone yells to use a skill to read its remaining HP, but Sakai snaps that he only sees its name and species, so they're completely blind to its actual health. Sakai's breath catches as the wolf, still alive, hauls itself upright. Panic explodes in him when he realizes the creature can still move, even after swallowing the poison. Sakai's scream rips from his throat as the wolf hauls itself upright. The wolf didn't attack. It spun and staggered away. Stunned and confused, Sakai bolted after it, shouting, "Where are you going?" As the comment savaged Sakai, Aragami leapt to his defense, roaring that it was the right decision. Weakened by poison, the wolf still stands but staggers, every wobble a grim sign as the toxin creeps slowly through its body. Aragami taunted Seki, "Want to beat me? Strike now, this is your only shot." Aseka surged forward, excitement sparking in his veins as the superiors dissected his choice. A woman declared his instinct had led him to the best move. Yuki Kazi agreed. Given how things unfolded, it was a razor-sharp play. But Sakai? He wasn't listening to praise or thinking it through. He was acting on pure impulse. Instinct ripped through him. Sakai bolted with the poisoned wolf snapping at his heels, zeroing in on the resting area as his only chance at safety. He bolts without thinking, certain that in that instant he's ripping his fate open and making a new path. Tired of always being dragged into messes like this, he still doesn't regret it. Sakai slams his gaze onto the map, forges a hard decision, vows to act, and clamps his lips shut about the plan. As whispers question his motives, he just smirks, says, "Watch," and his whole stance screams ironclad confidence in what's about to happen. Sakai squared up to the wolf, stance rock steady, and a fearless grin splitting their face. He beckons the monster closer, eyes razor-sharp and taunting, and vows he'll crush it with a single glare. The wolf launches itself at Sakai with savage ferocity, jaws bared, while Sakai stands unshaken, a calm smile curling on his lips. He sneered, mock-praising the beast as a good wolf for launching itself at him. Sakai taunts the wolf, skidding backward across the floor. The wolf collapses exactly where he stood, blindsided by the move. Sakai's grin split his face. Everything had unfolded exactly as he'd planned. He roared, "Idiot!" as the wolf dove headfirst into the magma, sneering that monsters stripped of intelligence and judgment become nothing but beasts. Brimming with confidence, he jabbed a finger and finished with a triumphant sneer. That was exactly what I wanted, to send the wolf plunging straight into the lava. By the time Sakai registers it, Magma is already dragging him and the wolf under, and terror rips from his throat as the monster's tail snaps around him. He claws for calm, but it's obvious they're about to plunge together. A wolf slams Sakai into searing magma. As he flails in panic, a voice snaps not to get too excited. Sienna deadpans he fell in just 2 frames, and Aragami sneers he'll laugh if Sekai somehow survives. He plummets, rifling through his thoughts, and swells with fierce pride that, even mid-fall, his mind refuses to stop, no matter the danger. He concedes this changes nothing. By accepting defeat, he owns he's powerless to change the course of events. He plummets, thoughts clawing at him, and he realizes he could spin his mind in circles forever, and it wouldn't change a thing. Plummeting, he knows he won't go quietly. A cell phone clenched in his hand screams, "There's one desperate move left." Still plummeting, he summons a desperate power with teeth-gritted resolve. Panic claws at him, but he rips a spell into being and a shape blooms before him. He clamps onto it, muscles burning and eyes razor-focused, fighting to halt the fall and wrench himself free from doom. After clawing through his desperate bid to survive, he finally falls. Yet, not beaten, he lands in a slightly more controlled pocket. Relief surges for having lasted this far. Then pain snaps him back as his hands and feet show the cost in raw scrapes. While another character laughs that his stunt was as impressive as it was comical, and the scene takes on a wry, joking tone as they hash over every battered detail. Clarity slammed into the protagonist. He finally saw the situation in brutal detail. He eyes the lava and scoffs that the bottom's shallower than he'd expected. A creature materializes and, dripping sarcasm, asks, "You mean yourself when you say shallow?" He stares at the creature wreathed in flames and registers that its fiery hide laughs at lava. He wonders if the fall could hurt it, then sees it's not coming for him. He snatches the chance to reach solid ground calmly and safely, planning to inch forward slowly to avoid more problems. He pins the creature with a skeptical glare, scoffs, "A wolf?" and fumes at its reckless darting. He throws out a shout. "You're brave. There's still a little time. Keep going." Even as a prick of wonder hits him at how odd it is to cheer a creature trapped in this mess, so he steels himself, frustration braided with fierce encouragement. Now determined, he whips toward the heartless spectators, flashes a sardonic grin, jokes that his life's on the line, then vows to push his mission onward, audience or not. His heart thunders as he strolls, declaring he's ready for the scaffolding operation with a cool grin that turns tension into swagger. Then he lights up at being a rookie, embracing this grave challenge like an electrifying dare. The protagonist rockets forward, vaulting over seas bobbing on the molten surface, fighting to keep their footing as they sprint across the lava, nearly slipping but forcing onward while a flaming wolf barrels up from behind, hot on their heels. He chugs a potion to quell the blistering heat, adrenaline surging as the exit hangs just within reach. The wolf barrels after him, relentless, and with one desperate leap left to safety, the protagonist crouches, muscles coiled for the final push. He rockets into one last, heart-pounding leap for solid ground, certain he's finally broken free. At the last heartbeat, he misjudges his leap and plunges straight into molten lava, narrating his own defeat with a deadpan quip, "Death by dive," while the wolf watches from the shadows, completely indifferent. At the edge of the molten pit, he teeters. Then the wolf behind him rockets forward and triggers a cataclysmic explosion. The blow hurls him headlong toward rock-hard earth. Stunned by the twist, he locks eyes with the wolf, grins at its accidental shove, and fires off a laughing thanks for the unintentional save. He slams into the ground, scratched and battered from the impact, as on-screen comments erupt in cruel laughter over how he was thrown. He roars at the crowd that keeps laughing at his misfortune, even after everything he's survived, then slams on a fake glare with a spark in his eyes, leaps to his feet and strides on to prove his spirits still unbroken. He gapes as the wolf begins to approach on solid ground. Despite everything, it keeps coming. He scrambles for an explanation, madness, poison, and shoots out an ironic joke about his own blurry vision. Realizing this isn't the moment to stand still, he snaps into motion and races away at once. He squares off with the wolf and refuses to run. He couldn't drown the beast in the lava. but something hard and new has been forged inside him. Marked by that moment, he steels himself, snatches his weapon, plants his feet, locks eyes with the wolf, and vows to prove he'll face whatever comes next. He prepares to attack, zeroing in on the creature's eyes, convinced they're the vital link straight to its brain. His voice isn't comforting, but he clamps his sword like a lifeline and admits running only bought time. Memories of his real life and jagged thoughts collide until cold clarity hits him. Hiding won't get him home, he has to move. He charges ahead and roars a command, calling the wolf to follow him. He rockets at the wolf, sword leveled to end the chase, determination a white-hot blade as he confronts the beast head-on. He roared the game of tag was over, snapped into real fight, and sprinted at the wolf, sword raised, determination blazing, ready to strike as the wolf lunged in a savage charge, the inevitable clash hurling them into the battle's heart where they were seconds from collision. At the fight's tipping point, he slams a hidden card down. The wolf staggers in shock as he strides forward with a cocky grin, reads the opponent's predictable pattern, exhales calm, and the game snaps into his hands. The protagonist plants himself before the wolf, locks eyes, and declares it's a tie. Both uninjured, weapon gripped tight as he fights to keep the standoff from tipping. He lunges forward. The wolf explodes into him, catapulting him far away. Rocketing through the air, he quips with a grin, "The wolf's right. There was no tie at all." He's hurled into the wall, slamming so hard he embeds himself and gets stuck. Crowd jeers. He's fused to the wall. He's art now. Some laugh and others put on worried faces. He scrambles to react, still dazed, wondering if this can even be called comedy amid the violence. Pinned in the shattered wall by the impact, the protagonist quips he'd have died if he hadn't slammed the potions down at the last second, then snaps back, brushes himself off, and laughs it off with a grin. Moments later, he sprang to his feet, exhilarated, and declared that now that he was fine, the next move was clear. He was ready to charge ahead with renewed confidence. After recovering, he confesses he's mentally drained and can't figure out the next steps, so he turns to the viewers and pleads for suggestions to spark his next move. The comments snub him, yelling, "Think for yourself," but he grins, shrugs it off, and keeps hustling to pull the audience in. He barges into view, seizing everyone's attention with a forced, serious mask. Yet his over-the-top, caricatured expression kills the urgency, and viewers whisper that he doesn't even look like he needs help. The analysis team looks like they're all about to call it when a newcomer barrels in, gasping, "Sorry I'm late," and with them comes fresh backup to the scene. A message from Marigami pings in. She's finished the analysis and cracked away to take down the wolf. Relief crashes over him, and he collapses in a stunned, grateful cry as if a savior has just appeared. Viewers' comments explode, celebrating the analysis team's arrival, and the protagonist cranks his reactions into wildly theatrical overdrive. He pledges to lick Aragami's shoes for help, rips open the guild proposal, and reads it with his heart pounding as renewed hope and fierce confidence swells inside him. Aragami rips the veil off the mystery. This isn't a normal beast, but the searing wolf, forged of magic and fiction and immune to conventional attacks. And the analysis pins down one flaw. It's vulnerable only during direct physical contact. The protagonist, fired up by the revelation, snaps up the guild invitation, and the viewers erupt with jokey encouragement. Even someone shouts, "Just hit the wolf with the walk," keeping things absurdly light despite the danger. Confident in the plan the analysis revealed, the protagonist stakes everything on the walks, declaring that all he has to do is buy several and hurl them at the enemy. He slashes the air and summons a hail of pans from the sky, while the crowd's comments flip between stunned confusion and rooting cheers, proving that, absurd as it looks, the walk has always been his anchor in his toughest moments. He reels through every dungeon memory, and the walk has always been at his side, enduring blistering heat and the gnawing bite of hunger. To him, the walk is no mere tool. It's a loyal companion that shielded him and kept him alive. And now, facing a savage wolf, he knows they will triumph together. He faces the wolf head-on once more, primed for the final confrontation, and respectfully calls it Mr. Wolf. Worn and weary in body, but its spirit blazes with fierce, impressive strength. He plants his feet and stares down the wolf, flat out saying he knows its plan. As it closes in, he stays ice-cold, insisting he's fine and that at this range it can't toss a fireball, utensil raised as he orders the beast to calm down. He readied himself like a batter at the plate, stance locked and resolve coiled, while the crowd volleyed jokes and thunderous cheers, laughing and egging him on. The wolf erupts in a brutal burst and he pounces back without a beat, unleashing a counterstrike, the decisive head-to-head of improvisation against raw ferocity. The protagonist turns his walk into armor, snapping the attack aside with a single stride. Surprise rips through him as his blow cracks something on the wolf. Stunned and buzzing, he screams in triumph, realizing he actually dealt real damage. Spotting the weak spot at last, his eyes blazing with confidence, the protagonist roared he'd been ready all along. The wolf lunges again, and he explodes back with raw power, throwing his entire weight into the strike and roaring, "Take that!" He seized control and meets the enemy head-on with no hesitation. His strike lands clean. The wolf recoils with a pained howl and staggers back. He whoops at the sight of even a trickle of blood, proof of progress. The crowd yells this is the perfect moment to strike, and with a stunned, exhilarated grin, he realizes he's actually hurting the beast, and victory might be within reach. The protagonist surges forward, every ounce of power poured into the final attack, hurling another strike with savage force and iron determination. The injured wolf screams in furious desperation as comments explode, proving the attacks are landing. Sensing victory, the protagonist roars, "This is the last one," pouring every ounce of energy into a final strike to end the battle once and for all. The protagonist explodes into a roar, certain he's won, screaming with iron conviction, "It's over!" In the next instant, the wolf's eyes erupt into a feral blaze as it locks its gaze. It's not done yet. The air snaps and the calm shatters. The fight isn't over, and the true ending might still be coming, so he freezes mid-step, bewildered, as the world around him twists and reshapes. He has no idea what's about to hit him. Chaos swallows him. His thoughts splinter and fade, leaving one blunt, undeniable truth. This is definitely not good. Blankness rips through his thoughts, heralding the rise of something unknown and far deadlier. The protagonist snaps awake, sprawled on the ground, wounded and utterly exhausted, but alive. Meanwhile, his stream is slammed by a tidal wave of donations while the chat explodes with hype, turning the whole thing into a full-blown spectacle. Dazed, realization hits. He just stared the wolf down and herded it into a corner with nothing but a walk. Pain tears through him, but he admits he pulled off something incredible. The protagonist lies utterly destroyed on the ground after the battle, pain shredding him, breath a ragged rasp, limbs useless, confusion and weakness blurring his thoughts as he claws for the memory of what he was doing. Body failing and mind scrambled, fighting to stay conscious beneath the crushing weight of the battle he just waged. Wounded and his body quaking, he drives his arms into motion, knowing if he doesn't gulp a potion now, he'll die. He strains every muscle, stretching a trembling hand toward the bottle as frantic voices push him to rise. Consciousness crawls back, and finally his fingers close around the thing that can save him. The protagonist snaps awake, says he blacked out for a while, and frantically tries to piece together what happened, while the comments offer nothing but that he'd been hurled far and crashed hard. Clueless, he fires off a question about the situation, and then super chats explode with syrupy, lovey messages, leaving him baffled and cheeks burning. He crashed into a rock, sprang up in a heartbeat, and yelled thanks for protecting his head, while the wolf appears to be unleashing a technique that rips the air into shockwaves. He realizes he's lost his bearings, grins at the opening and decides to hunt it down and ambush it, thrilled that he's so weak the enemy doesn't even bother watching him anymore. Relentless beatings have hardened him. He clenches his jaw, pumps himself up, and laughs that he'd even prefer dogs. A monstrous wolf. He flashes back to the moment he hurled it at the enemy, and a small twinge of remorse hits him. He flashes a grin and vows he'll blindside it next time, his confidence unshakable. Trust the walk. At last, the boy's eyes lock on the wolf once more. He watches the ring of flames around the monster gutter out, a clear sign the creature is weakening. With the wolf unaware, he hurled an improvised bottle stuffed with explosive pepper, mustard, and capsicum powder. It shattered in a choking blast that hit dead on, but only left the wolf dazed for a heartbeat. The wolf hurls a blazing fireburst straight at the boy. He reels in surprise and snaps at the creature's behavior. After the attack, he forces his breath steady and pleads with the wolf not to do it again, only to watch his every word spark another fireball. He sprints, screaming, "No!" as the ground in front of him erupts. Stunned by the unexpected sight, memories of a girl slam into him, her eyes glued to a TV, hands clenched tight as if cheering or worried. The boy gapes at a massive crater gouged by a direct impact. Doubt claws at him. Was this the same strike that hurled him before, the shock wave having blasted straight toward him? The yawning pit bears molten magma, twisting his mind between a magical assault and a meteor strike. The wolf watches the spot with razor intent. The boy claws for answers as his screen explodes with messages. Players tearing into the wolf's strike, some swearing it's an invisible skill, others blaming a gravity surge or a howl-driven windburst. He admits his head's scrambled. All he knows is the wolf still looms there, towering and ready to pounce. The wolf quits playing and rips off a relentless barrage of shock waves, throwing Sakai into a desperate sprint to dodge every blast. The assault is so savage other players shout about the wolf's mercilessness, Sakai can barely move and viewers already picture him not walking away intact. Sakai bolts for her life, chased by the level 1024 wolf, convinced there's nothing more she can do. Resigned to death, he suddenly roars that he still has one last trick. As the monster barrels in, he unleashes a carefully plotted gambit, staking everything on this final move. Sakai plants himself on the rim of the massive crater from the last onslaught, stares down the wolf and bellows the start of the final battle for the lower levels as the wolf watches, taut and wary, while the chat explodes with confused warnings. Sure, his move is suicidal. Sakai hurtles down the crater slope, summoning the walk once more like a dare, as if he's decided to plunge straight into the lava, and the spectators reel in shock, whispering there's no way out from here. Even as confusion claws at him, Sakai freezes. The wolf perches above, only watching, and Aragami drinks it in, clearly fascinated. Sakai crouched in this crater's belly, eyes locked on the wolf above. One fireball would finish him, he realized. Then he flipped his thinking. That would only be true if he were a wolf. A bolt of inspiration cracks through his mind, and he forges a brand new idea. Sakai admits he was consumed with beating the wolf head-on, misreading the beast. Despite flinging deadly fireballs, it kept charging without mercy, and now he finally reads its rhythm and plots a bolder counter. Sakai flips the wolf's aggression back on itself, meeting the beast head-on as he studies the cold pride that drives it to try to kill him without hesitation. He sees the wolf's pride shove it into reckless strikes. Sakai pounces on that opening, summons his wolf again, and stakes everything on this one decisive strike. Sakai flings a torrent of water dead-on at the wolf. It detonates into a thunderous, blinding explosion. He shouts that eruptions erupt when molten lava slams into underground water, a trick he learned by watching something. And in the middle of the fight, he turns that knowledge into a weapon, catching even the wolf off guard. Sakai bursts out the truth. The plan was ridiculously simple. He grabbed a bottle of drinking water on impulse. offered a quick prayer over it, and, as a humanities student, admitted he had no idea how much to use. He gambled everything on luck, as the water flashed into steam all at once and left him with nowhere to flee. He pinned his fate on the blast working exactly as planned. An explosion rips through the scene, jets of steam punching skyward under savage pressure as someone gasps. Is that a free atomagmatic eruption? An explosion from magma meeting water? 24 hours have crawled by since Sekai and the wolf were hurled into the sky and ripped apart. There's still no trace of him. Viewers wail, convinced he's dead. Then a stone shudders and shifts like the first breath of something about to break free. Sakai rockets back into the sky at breakneck speed, fist raised and eyes blazing. Then he slams into the ground with a thunderous impact, proving he survived the explosion and is primed to keep fighting. Sakai nails a show-stopping landing, reborn and electric after surviving the explosion. He snatches up his dungeon smartphone, miraculously intact, and relief explodes through him. He can resume the stream. After panicking when he was flung far, he now grins and wonders how the live stream is going. Sakai bursts back onto the live stream, brimming with energy and throwing up a victory pose as he thanks the absurdly huge comments and super chats, one topping 100 million, then freezes, stunned when he sees how much Yuki Kazi donated. The chat erupts. How did you survive that? He goes silent, doubt ripping through him as he scrambles to piece together what really happened. Sakai dives into the pre-explosion story, slams the replay onto the screen for everyone, and says that long before the blast, he slammed back a purple potion. That's what kept him breathing, even after everything that came crashing down. Sakai gulped the purple potion despite its rancid bite, like poison looted from a treasure chest. But the instant it hit him, every wound sealed and exhaustion vanished, as if time rewound and his body snapped back to its prime. Sakai grinned and admitted he'd gulped the purple potion, betting it would work, and Aragami snapped that it didn't just heal, it regenerated fatal injuries, more powerful than temple-level resurrection items. Sienna snaps that if he'd taken it to the surface, they'd have seized it for sure, and Sakai staggers, jaw dropping as the truth slams in. The potion really was all of that. Sakai leans in and murmurs, he can't say it aloud, but rumor has it anyone who brings an artifact powerful enough to rewrite the laws of physics will be squeezed dry by the association or hunted down by assassins. He grins and says he always flips his fines straight to the association to dodge trouble. That absurd item kept him alive, and he finishes with a smile. It's good to be alive. Sakai admits that surviving the explosion meant nothing. The fall left him utterly shattered. A ridiculous, embarrassingly delightful buzz surges through him. He scowls, wrestles a second potion down, and apologizes for the wait as he catches his breath. Now, fully himself, he shrugs off the curious whispers and bellows, "My turn." Sakai snapped that the blast struck right there and the entire field, Wolf-kun included, lay obliterated. He bids the wolf farewell, whispering, "Rest in peace," as he walks away. He'd suspected it from experience, and now certainty crashes down. Wolf-kun is really dead. Sakai spots something on the ground and bolts toward it. It's his walk, miraculously untouched by the blast, and he erupts with joy, clutching it and hailing it as his faithful partner, and vows they'll keep fighting side by side from now on, pouring every ounce of effort into whatever comes next. Sakai lunges for the walk, but it's still blistering. He screams as his hands burn, recoils a step, and starts complaining. He spots something beside the path and creeps closer, curiosity crackling while a cold dread whispers that he might end up roasted. Sakai's jaw drops as gleaming armor and a colossal magical stone shimmer into being at his feet. He wonders if this is the prize for slaying the wolf, hoists the stone to find it's almost the size of his head, and stands awestruck. Then Aragami posts in the comments that an uncolored magical stone that size would be worth trillions, leaving everyone stunned. Sakai clutched the magical stone, mind racing at its worth, as whispers said this single gem could fuel 5 years of energy, spark a leap in machine development, and command a fortune at auction. They call out, "Aragami, are you here?" He snaps back that he's not, and Sienna scoffs that the number 2 world is taking itself way too seriously. Someone murmurs a plan to sell the stone discreetly to the Japanese Association. It would likely wipe out the government's development group, and Sakai hangs on every word, mind racing. Sakai fixes his gaze on the enchanted stone, tucks it away for now with a blunt, "I don't understand complicated things," then flips over the second prize, a gleaming golden candy. He glances at the skill orb. Its color's different from the previous one, but it's the same type. Memories of past misfires flare up, and he freezes, afraid he'll end up with another useless skill like last time. Shrugging off past dangers, Sakai devours the golden candy and murmurs, "Thank you for the meal." Then, even as memories of his mistakes flare, he does it again with an amber candy, delighted by its taste and hoping it grants a good skill. He swallows it, checks his skill list, and discovers 2 brutal new abilities. Focused Revival. Sacrifice a limb to unleash a devastating attack. Stamina Consumption Reduction. When he's teetering on death, his recovery surges and his attacks hit harder. Sakai erupts in triumph, snatching the final reward, a gleaming golden armor, convinced it will finally shore up his fragile defenses. Yuki Kazi snaps him back. The sacrifice skill forbids Sakai from wearing armor, and his excitement dies on the spot. Sakai storms into the association's meeting room, plants herself in the center with a stone-cold face, and snaps, "Do we throw the item away?" Shock ripples around the table, and one voice shatters the silence, demanding, "Isn't Sakai far too dangerous?" The association kept sparring over Sakai. One member admitted the spoils, like that uncolored magical stone, were valuable, but warned they still couldn't seize it by force, even if he came back alive. Someone chimes, "I never expected this to blow up," and a third says, "Sakai isn't looking for trouble." What a relief. One of them erupts, calling everyone crazy for shrugging off Sakai's proven unpredictability, while another soothes the room, insisting a purchase negotiation, even with government funds if needed, will settle it. Tensions slammed into the association meeting as a member barked that negotiation was off the table. Sakai was far too unpredictable. Another snaps that, even after combing through his every move, nobody there can pry open the thoughts behind his eyes. Uncertainty smothered the group until one member, face like ice, snapped that the best thing was to hope Sakai dies soon. Sakai appears smiling as the narrator reels at how insane it would be for anyone to crawl back alive from the depths of Tokyo's den of demons, because whoever pulls that off would wield monstrous power and become a true monster no one could even touch. He grinned, and the girl beside him snapped, "Stop it!" He wore the vice captain's armband, and the boy, glued to Yumina Rastel's broadcast, snapped, "Don't say that, it's rude." You're asking if that was a real broadcast or pure nonsense, and whether he'd been toying with Sakai Kotoba the whole time. Watching the fight on the 500th floor as Sakai Kotoba threw caution to the wind to take down that boss, I couldn't believe he could possibly do anything better. Against all odds, Sakai Kotoba pulled it off. The vice captain sprang to his feet, demanding whether anyone could believe it. This was the boss of Tokyo's strongest dungeon, and there was no way to explain how Sakai had gotten there. Against all odds, Sakai Kotoba must be the luckiest player alive to plunge that far with his skill. Unbelievable and a total rush to watch. The vice captain keeps saying he's never seen anything this interesting. Then the girl cuts in and asks what he's thinking. He freezes mid-broadcast on Sakai Kotoba, his voice snagging in his throat. The girl hurled a sharp shout at the chief, yanking his attention, and he barked, "What happened?" Clutching a book, she asks, irritation curling in her voice, if he can whisper the man's name. He silences her with a sharp, "Be quiet." He'd utterly lost his calm, and the most intriguing thing was someone from his life had suddenly appeared. And on top of it all, he wasn't the only one. Other players were glued to the protagonist's broadcast. That's the situation now. To that world's senses, it would drag every soul into it. The highest rank was the domain of superhumans, and when rumors claimed the boy was a national-level fighter, everyone ached to see how far he'd go. That was as far as Sekai Kotoba dared to reach. Having finally grabbed the last items from the arena's back, he plunged into the cave, only to have magic circles flare to life right in front of the entrance. It hit him. This could be a transfer gate. He'd glimpsed something like it on Yuki Kazi's broadcast. The green one blasted upward while the blue one plunged downward. Annoying, sure, but Sekai Kotoba never demanded an elevator to get all the way up. He craved it relentlessly, only as his ticket inside, and the people in the chat said they understood how he felt. This wasn't supposed to be ridiculous. Maybe something vital still hid beneath the surface. And if that was true, it was time to plunge to the very bottom. But they don't say it makes no sense. They had no idea how far those zones stretched. 500 floors where people scraped to survive. So Sekai Kotoba yelled to head straight back to the entrance, and the vice captain agreed. Kotoba was right, because he has his own plans, and in the middle of this, down on the lowest floor, you have to ask, what horrors wait on the 500th floor? Lies smother the truth about how the lowest floor monsters were destroyed and the whole bottom of the dungeon. It would deliver an experience bursting with benefits for those. Only the conqueror grabbed the spoils. The moment a dungeon fell, it vanished, a truth entire nations denied as they funneled resources elsewhere. The dungeon economy had been picked clean. Even India had collapsed, so dungeons became unconquerable, a secret reserved for those who reached the highest rank. That was crucial to Sekai Kotoba. He hadn't even known the dungeon hid a core. So the girl snapped at the vice captain, asking if he'd been watching someone who could topple him. You insist he's the weakest. He doesn't even know those destructive powers. Sekai Kotoba can claw for levels, but the captain would flatten him in 2 seconds, and you watch him stride by with that cocky, unshakable confidence. Every strike screamed he was about to become far stronger than the vice captain. This baffling mystery screamed to be probed. Nothing cuts deeper than discovering it's indecipherable, and the vice captain is already charging toward the unknown. This had to sink in. She was Yumina Restel, 3rd ranked in the highest classification. She snaps. Did the vice captain just want to say that line? Her head tangled from too much Japanese anime and manga. Soon he realizes he's been trapped, and that only cranks the stakes into overdrive. The whole world fixated on Sekai Kotoba, and he burned to know what would happen and how long Sekai Kotoba would wait. Sekai Kotoba clenched his teeth and resolved to storm up to the next floor. The chat pleaded, "You okay? Can you rest tonight?" But Sekai Kotoba stayed unshaken. He'd been healed by a potion, and 499 floors still lay ahead to blast straight through. The time to move completely had come. Sekai Kotoba stepped down as the chat erupted. Things were already ramping up, and he was still a novice. His next target was the 2nd floor. Sekai Kotoba registers the falling snow and whips his head toward the bare, skeletal trees standing empty before him. He stared, thinking the whole place might be one raised expanse. Then the truth slammed into him. Sekai Kotoba sat on the 499th floor. Then the question slams in, what does a human mean to a sun wolf? Revealing that proof now would ignite fierce dissent. The boss owned the floor with iron authority, and a few untouchable oddballs drifted through life worry-free. Their names were chosen deliberately. They singled out that wolf from among them, crowning it the chosen one. Even after knowledge and self-awareness were hammered into them, they still had to awaken emotion. People whispered he was special, and in battle he learned the strongest would always emerge. The first time the human stepped before the wolf, he felt his own weakness slam into him, and the wolf bristled in disgust. He'd found nothing. He saw exactly how he looked, so he unleashed the beast within. He craved fighting stronger foes, relishing the torment because it made the perfect distraction. A wolf barreled after the protagonist, closing in fast, but his opponent was a strange man. The wolf tilted its head, awe burning in its eyes. How were humans making things sprout back to life like plants? Realization unfolded inside the wolf like a slow knife, and he found himself powerless to stop it. In the end, it turned into a cold, cruel thrill. The wolf vanished, its feral strength twisted by anguish. I watched the protagonist rocket into that jaw-dropping jump. Confusion claws at the wolf. He can't grasp what humans are, no matter how hard he strains, even as flames engulf him. Not a trace of fear crossed the protagonist's face. Maybe he was reveling in it, strange, and he stood like trash among the weak. He couldn't forge feelings from human contact. Stray thoughts would harden into fierce courage or a poisonous tide of emotion that would steal everything inside the wolf, and next time he wouldn't hold back. He'd finish that thing. The moment he made that choice, the initiative ripped from his grasp. The wolf sank into stunned confusion when the man's power dwarfed his own. He couldn't pretend it wasn't happening, so when the man offered a potion, he swallowed his pride and seized it. Everything spiraled into pure tragedy. The wolf sneered, branding the protagonist a useless human, but the much-anticipated person. By the end, they revealed themselves as an unbelievable person. The power ripped into a swarm of cores stayed a mystery, and clarity steeled the wolf to prepare. He reigned as the floor's strongest, untouchable. Defeat was impossible, or so the wolf believed. A human who looked like a fool dared to tempt fate to see who among them would stay calm, and it blew up in his face. He couldn't fathom anyone like that existed. The chaos of battle would be where he'd first hear about it. They should shut the opponent down with a rock-solid, battle-tested strategy. No, this went further. The wolf crashed down. Humans branded it defeated, and next time doubt would gnaw at its heart. The 499th floor turned into a nightmare. Lava had just erupted, and immediately a brutal deluge of snow slammed the place into chaos. A Snow City native sniffed danger at a glance, and chat exploded, roaring that the protagonist couldn't lose now. He'd freeze to death out there, a cruel, disrespectful end. So Sakai Kotoba soon admits they've got a point and insists he step up and handle any cases they're involved in. He snapped up a stack of clothes, snatching at a scrap of warmth, and after he piled them on, Sakai Kotobo braced for the cold, wrapped in convenient, ready-made clothes. Still, a stubborn chill bit at him. Viewers of Sakai Kotoba's broadcast kept spitting venom, bitter souls who couldn't celebrate someone else's good fortune. With them there, a shield of calm fell over them. They could finally breathe. Sakai Kotoba said it himself. He hailed from way up in the highlands, and when his parents were transferred, he relocated to Tokyo 2 years ago. Before that, he was a total snow kid who'd brave snowy streets in a t-shirt and shorts, but the snow he knew was a different beast. The chat erupts, demanding, was he really that convincing, and why won't he reveal his current level? Now that this had been mentioned, Sakai Kotoba devoured the experience after defeating it. Leveled up and rocketed to level 596, the inflation was brutal. Soon, Sakai Kotoba snapped that it was obvious. It was lethal. One misstep meant instant death. He evaded the incoming attack, but when Sakai Kotoba tried to dodge the motion warped, cornered, he still took damage, and Sakai Kotoba's arm snapped off. Chat warned that the monsters on that floor were hiding on purpose, flat out refusing to show themselves. How do you even fight something like that? People are begging Sakai Kotoba to leave as tension crackles in the air, but soon Sakai Kotoba triggers a skill and watches the whole scene unfold, and locks eyes on a small level 1029 rabbit, a freakishly strange creature, and the chat erupts. There it is. The trauma. That thing. The snow rabbit, the literal core of his trauma, was out to finish the protagonist. knowing it would never forgive him. The girl says it exploded into a brutal, breath-stealing chase, and they thought they'd latch onto Sakai Kotoba's neck. They knew no one wanted to witness a real decapitation, so he had to spring aside. If he didn't, he'd be in serious trouble right then. I was glued to that rabbit. Its unbearable cuteness warped the whole moment into something oddly surreal. Sakai Kotoba craved one as a pet, and the chat erupted, shouting if he'd lost his mind and accusing him of falling for that kind of thing. That rabbit had been crowned the most hated monster of the last 20 years, and Sakai Kotoba never wanted it as a pet after it snapped his arm off like a twig. Yet even when he checked his phone, it refused to attack. Shockingly, it looked flawless, and viewers devoured every scrap of content Kotoba put out. Never had I seen someone bear a fixed mark on their research like that. The chat erupted, demanding full data from that very first snow rabbit encounter, and a high-ranking explorer flat out named him the Snow Rabbit Killer. Even with that fragile, sensitive air, seeing Sakai Kotoba cut loose on his broadcast felt oddly wrong. The tide had already turned for the better, but he couldn't outthink the facts unfolding, so when the adventurer stepped up to spill his theories, everyone leaned in, and by the end they were all asking the same thing. What is a snow rabbit, really? The monster that erupts in the middle of the lower floors and pops up across many countries varies wildly in type, appearance, size, and even how shockingly adorable it can be. They resemble rabbits, but addiction devours them harder than any other species on Earth. They lure you with that cute face and then aim straight for your throat, ambushing from the shadows, turning their tiny size into deadly leverage, claws primed to rip, not just bite, tearing flesh. If you dodge, they lock you with those adorable eyes, sizing you up to lower your guard and staying utterly still until they choose to end you. And Sakai Kotoba saw it all and began to watch the rabbit. He stared into emptiness, wondering what the meaning of it all was. He assumed a wolf would have a sense of self, but maybe, no matter how intelligent, it couldn't ponder that kind of thing. The rabbit lay unnervingly docile. The chat warned Sakai Kotoba not to do that. Yet he started touching the rabbit, and in that instant he realized his hand was no longer on his arm. The rabbit tore through everything in sight. He slammed a potion down, but the beast kept devouring. His hand gripped like iron, and that kept... It had been happening for quite some time. Then the feeding rendered the rabbit unnervingly docile. A baffling turn. They pressed him. Satisfied, Sakai Kotoba? His arm had reknit itself instead of his head. Did that wipe the trauma clean? That was the gist. But soon Sakai Kotoba began the Thoughts of the rabbit clawed at him. Viewers warned him live it had been exploring the first floor, and by its own strength it had learned to manipulate things. It popped up out of nowhere, and before you knew it, they were all friends, teammates or something like that. He snaps, "You're not scared, are you?" Then fires up his focus skill. It rips the rabbit's soul away, and the poor creature blinks out of existence. The crowd erupts into screams, and amid the uproar they call Sakai Kotoba heartless, demanding to know if there's anything at all in his chest. He snaps everyone to attention, demanding they think carefully, his voice fierce as he insists snow rabbits are nothing short of amazing. They only tolerated each other by fighting, so when that fell apart, one lunged and clamped its jaws onto the protagonist's arm. That species was hooked on snuffing lives, and maybe he couldn't stomach it. Maybe killing that creature had handed him something raw and new, a lethal skill he kept turning over. He clenches his jaw, severs the past, and charges forward. Sakai Kotoba's gaze snaps to something that fell from the rabbit. It's a reward, maybe green. Sakai Kotoba's eyes lock on it again. It's really a reward, maybe green. Hues morphed before her eyes over time, making it look like a stone. So the girl decided, grab a stone, and it snaps from white into color. By morning, it's pure, concentrated, elemental magic. Red burns with fire, green roars with wind, and the hue screams which element it holds. The meaning snapped into place, and Sakai Kotobu's face lit up as he gratefully thanked the woman for saying it. She set out to flaunt her knowledge, plain and simple. Soon, Sakai Kotobu, you must have heard about that place that forges magic stones into the heart of some mysterious energy development. He's left scratching his head. What attribute is even used for this sort of thing? Two voices scrambled to explain, but neither of them could say for sure. They had to tell Sakai Kotoba. The vice captain snarled that the stones could be used several ways, but at heart they trap raw power, able to artificially birth phenomena like roaring wind or biting cold, even if only briefly, and that power can be twisted into malicious schemes or channeled for power generation and development. First, they tamed the wind into raw power. Turbines spun, even without the magic stone's energy. The excess fed energy circuits and airplane engines, and a single stone that size could keep everything running for a month. Sakai Kotoba throws her the win, admitting she used words he understands inside and out. Sakai Kotoba snaps that explaining isn't marching in and dumping every detail. The chat erupts. The man sits mute. And Kotoba says he'd heard these things can appear worldwide, and that magic stones have replaceable attributes. He even admits he'd been running for a month and found it fascinating, but it's useless to him because they need something to make the dungeon far more thrilling. The chat begs Sakai Kotoba to use the regulatable magic stone, but he dismissed magic. His priority was finding shelter fast because his arm still hadn't recovered. He craved a quiet place to recover and hunted for a cave or any shelter, but the blizzard was so fierce he couldn't see a thing. A vast, shadow-choked expanse yawned before him. The chat warned the 500th floor had near-zero visibility, so who knew what monsters might ambush him along the way? Sakai Kotoba grinned, admitting they were right to wait for this. Maybe he wouldn't even catch hypothermia. His breath hitched as snow began piling up before him. Something was blocking it. Maybe this was the city hall of Sakai Kotoba's town. Toy dinosaurs littered the grounds, and a hulking dinosaur monument by the city station stood like a sentence. This was where he'd be expelled. Sakai Kotoba hurls a frantic apology into the chat. The crew quickly pins down their real-world location. But that thing... A colossal shape towered before him, so enormous it made the wolf look puny, and the chat erupted, screaming that Sakai Kotoba would be crushed. He nearly retreated, relieved nobody saw a death flag on Sakai Kotoba. But that monster was a total blind spot. He couldn't sense a thing. They accepted the silhouette. First, they had to pin down the monster's identity to calm the situation, but the woman insists she can see it without even focusing, and if they stepped into a fight, they'd be wiped out instantly. Sakai Kotoba's skill packed incalculable destructive power and stunned everyone. But to take down those colossal foes would demand 2 or 3 blows, and each strike would cost Sakai Kotoba everything he owned, so he sank into cold, focused thought. They vowed to keep landing critical hits, striking again and again. With skills like those, he should bellow, "I won't lose," the first time. The crowd eats it up. Saying it again would feel downright strange. Sakai Kotoba snarled that he's starting to pick up a terrible habit. Then he pivots, coiled to sprint. Now it's all about getting back to where he came from. Sakai Kotoba whirled around. The snow had suddenly stopped falling. Light and darkness sliced the scene in razor-sharp contrast, and the shadow crouched right behind him. Sakai Kotoba spun around and froze. A colossal turtle loomed there, its strange face locking its gaze on him. Sakai Kotoba jolted at the sight, the silhouette screaming, "Dinosaur!" Then it stepped forward as a long-necked turtle, shivering in the bone-chilling cold, and doubt hit him. Was this a trick? The turtle stiffened, then lunged at Sakai Kotoba. It was incredible. Sakai Kotoba answered with surgical precision. The turtle unleashed a devastating gale. Sakai Kotoba gritted his teeth and held out for. It hung there for a while, then suddenly hurtled through the air and smashed into a mountain in the... From the distance, the chat erupted. "That was incredible!" and the roar still won't let up. He slammed onto the mountain top. Siki Kotaba soon felt a huge chunk of his health vanish, but the snow had broken his fall. He gasped, "Magnificent, the crimson—" His blood painted the snow crimson. After all that, they insisted on reassessing the situation and declared Sakai Kotaba was on the right path. He admits an odd itch crawled over him at that moment, yet the real shock was how far he'd been hurled. The turtle was so massive it tore the chat members' sense of scale apart. Before long, they were frozen, no idea what to do. Sakai Kotoba cut through the silence and said, "That's a good question." They froze, clueless what to do, as the turtle watched them and refused to move, eerily calm, and when they finally realized it was standing dead still. In that heartbeat, Sakai Kotoba zeroed in. One action, one moment. He'd do it right in the heart of those mountains. He wound up buying a pot. The moment he knew it was time to unleash his intense skills, everyone held their breath, quiet fans most of all. And in that instant they noticed spotting the same type of pot, Sakai Kotoba snatched up a second one to keep as a backup. He tore down the snowy mountain, cold wind slicing his face as he realized how thrillingly refreshing it was. He plummeted at breakneck speed, and moments later Sakai Kotoba caught sight of something he had no idea how to shatter. He'd nailed falling from the sky, but skiing was a different beast. He jabbed a finger. There, a snow rabbit, and at that speed a collision was inevitable. They could dodge. People shriek about the snow rabbit, but Sakai Kotoba sidesteps. He fired off a final goodbye and warned that cursing someone would unleash disaster. Sakai Kotoba hurtles forward and slams headfirst into a tree. He couldn't evade it and plunged into the snow. Sakai Kotoba had to lock his focus on what lay before him, the man who never shied from his work, but soon. Sakai Kotoba declared his defense was impressive too. He'd somehow kept his original body intact. It was baffling, and then someone said it had been a while since they'd watched the broadcast, and he was already covered in wounds. They demanded where he was headed. He couldn't answer. After ages, Sakai Kotoba lights up when Yuki Kazi pops into the chat and shoots, "How have you been?" Moments later, Yuki Kazi asks, "Your arm still not healed?" He swore the cooldown had already ended. It had been ages since he'd set foot there. Sakai Kotoba steels himself to reclaim his arm. They fire off whether the cooldown came from him not healing after unleashing a colossal, sacrificial damage skill, and he watches the cooldown drop to 30 minutes as the truth snaps into place. Problems gnawed at Sakai Kotoba, and he desperately wanted a safer place to sort them out. But the world around him was a blinding sea of snow, and he had no idea where they should go. Then someone in the chat bursts out that in the snowy American mountains, there are caves you can shelter in, vital refuges. But they don't know if Japan has the same, and now they want to reveal where that information came from. Knowing enemies lurked along the road was vital. From his earlier watch, he saw something still clinging to Sakai Kotoba, but what waited ahead was deadly. Everyone agreed they were hearing this for the first time, and Sakai Kotoba thanked the three, and he should have surged forward with everything he had, but he completely misread it. Sick-eyed Kotoba flat out ignored the chat. Even though he swore he was, the truth ripped his mask off. He lunged forward, every word yanking him onward. The girl cut in, saying she was nearby and ordering him to hit the next spot. The chat exploded, slamming him as a fanatic. He knew he shouldn't do it, yet in that instant, nothing could stop Sakai Kotoba from running like a mermaid. He didn't know if there was a reason, only that he wanted to run. Not aimlessly, but driven by some hidden cause and a wild, uncontrollable passion. Sprinting across a vast, glittering snowfield felt electric. Then Sakai Kotoba misstepped and crashed hard into a cave yawning right beneath him. The entire chat had already warned him, yet Sakai Kotoba clamps onto the wall and begins to slip a little further. People still haven't learned the lesson, and neither has Sakai Kotoba. Sakai Kotoba knew better than anyone she was a razor-sharp investigator, And when the place matched every one of her suspicions, he refused to believe it was a trap. He releases his grip on the wall, convinced a rest spot waited just ahead, and plummets, dragging everything down with him.